everybody, it's SaskiaSketches, and my friend wrote a Dream SMP fanfic, which I'm going to draw some fan art for. So whilst I'm drawing this fan art, I'm going to be reading the first chapter of this fanfic, or at least part of it, and I'll have a link in the description to this fanfic, and you best go read it because it's really, really good. And I am having so much fun just reading it, and I enjoy it so much. I read the first, I think, 10 chapters in one sitting because I enjoyed it so much, so definitely highly recommend you go check it out. Even if you don't know anything about the Dream SMP, it's still fun to read. By the way, I am censoring the swearing, so if you don't like swearing, maybe no, read it, but if you don't like swearing, you probably wouldn't be watching Tommy in it either. Without further ado, let's get into Tommy Innit's best scam ever. Chapter 1. The Suit in the Garbage. Tommy wanted to make clear that none of this was his fault by any means. Some may suggest otherwise, but they are simply lying. Sure, there could have been better ways of handling the situation he had found himself in. Some of those ways would surely not have ended with a gigantic crater in the middle of the palace, but at least nobody got hurt, right? Okay, maybe he should backtrack a little. It all started yesterday when he and his best mate Tubbo were wandering around town looking for some way to make money, and by that he meant find a way to scam people. He would have gotten a real job a long time ago if that were an option in this economy and he had a way to make a resume, but sadly he didn't. The other two options were begging or stealing, which he didn't have the patience or the stealth for. But there was something he did have a buttload of, and that was charisma. Sadly, you can't buy a nice meal with charisma, but what you can do is convince other people to buy you food and then quickly run before they realize the rabbit food you gave them was in fact just a bunch of garbage and not in fact the magical artifact you had promised. So, that's what Tommy and Tubbo were doing when they were looking around for the next victim. Someone with a lot of money, but who was also a bit dumb, otherwise known as a tourist. Tubbo had been nagging him all day. He had been doing it for the last few days, ever since they met that guy Ranbu. What kind of name even was that? Ranbu is what he would call a rich kid. Him and Tubbo had become good friends, and he had offered them a place to stay, but Tommy would have none of it. He was a big man and he didn't need anyone else, thank you very much. He could get his own money. He didn't need any of Ranbu's pity money. But Tubbo didn't agree with him and had been nagging him about it for the past few days. Just think about it. We wouldn't have to worry about food anymore, and we'd have an actual place to stay, Tubbo said. He was about to give the perfect rebuttal when he spotted it. In one of the garbage cans was what he could only describe as a beautiful suit. So he got it out of the can and turned around, looking at Tubbo. "Look what I found," he said with the biggest grin on his face. "Wow, that looks expensive," said the shorter boy while they took a closer look. "Nice." Tommy took a closer look at the suit, and it looked to be about his size. All of a sudden, the most brilliant, awesome idea ever hit him. "I've got an idea for the perfect scam," he said. "No," said Tubbo before Tommy could even explain what his plan was. "I know that look in your eyes, and we are not doing one of your crazy plans again. Not after Missouri." "What do you mean? Missouri went great," Tommy said. "Also, this plan is completely different. I am going to attend the King's Ball." The rest of the day and most of the evening was spent trying to convince Tubbo that this was the best plan ever. He could go in with all the other guests, go snoop around, steal some expensive stuff that nobody would miss, and be on his way a lot richer. They wouldn't have to rely on stupid Ranbu, and they could get their own stuff. It was a great plan. It wasn't like he was going to steal something someone would actually miss. He wasn't stupid. In the end, Tubbo gave in. "Okay, but if you get arrested, that's on you. I am not going to bail you out." "That's fine with me," Tommy said with a grin. "Nobody can arrest me. I am just the stealthiest." "You're really not, actually," Tubbo said. This is how he ended up in front of the palace gates in the middle of the night. Most of the guests arrived by a car, so for his plan to work, he had to sneak to the gates and then blend in with the rest of the guests, which he must say went rather smoothly. Now came the difficult part of the plan. In front of the door stood multiple guards who were making sure that everybody was who they said they were, and that they were actually invited. something which Tommy certainly wasn't. But one thing he learned from scamming people was that oftentimes all you needed to convince someone was confidence. Complete and utter confidence that you were in the right here. So he straightened his back and made his way towards the door. His heart was beating 1,000 miles per hour, but on the outside he made sure that he looked completely calm. He calmly walked past the guard who was supposed to check his invitation. Before he could reach the door, he heard behind him the guard pipe up. "Excuse me." Tommy turned around and raised an eyebrow. The guard looked already uncomfortable. "You have to show an invitation." This was something that Tommy could absolutely not do since he, of course, didn't have an invitation. So, time for plan B since plan A, just walking in, had failed. "Excuse me," he said, waving his finger in the air. "Don't you know who you are talking to?" The guard shifted uncomfortably in his seat behind the counter, and when he was about to open his mouth when Tommy interrupted him. "I am Richard II in the line of the Schlatt dynasty." "I'm sorry, Your Highness," the guard said. The guard, of course, still had no idea who Richard was, since Tommy had made him up, but the guard did know what the Schlatt dynasty was. They were close allies with the Antarctic Empire. Their eldest son was friends with the eldest from the Empire. Tommy had reasoned that the guards wouldn't want to anger their boss by not letting someone in who was allied with the Empire. Behind Tommy, more and more nobles were arriving, and he was holding up the line, which only helped him since now the guard would want to hurry up. "You should be sorry. I hadn't expected this from the royal guards here. I seriously am going to have to talk to your superiors." But the guard started to say before Tommy interrupted him again. "But were you just going to be... seriously." He pinched his nose in disappointment. Behind him, he heard somebody pipe up. "Can you guys hurry up?" The guard was looking very uncomfortable and unhappy. Tommy opened his mouth, getting ready for another tirade when the guard gestured him to go in, so he just said, "Thank you," and walked through the large palace doors. Tommy couldn't believe that just worked. It was almost too easy, but Tubbo did always say that he was very good at channeling his inner Karen. When Tommy stepped through the doors, he almost couldn't believe his eyes. The place was huge. Chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and large murals were painted on the walls. The hall was filled with nobles and waiters. A waiter walked towards him and offered him a drink moments after entering the hall. He quickly made his way further inwards so that he wouldn't block the door while gulping around him. He walked inwards, taking in as much as possible. The nobles were all dressed in the most expensive outfits. In the back, a band was playing some music Tommy didn't recognize. People were dancing on the floor. To the side stood tables with more food than Tommy had ever seen. Tommy felt small in a massive hall. How could he not? The hall was simply said impressive. It didn't take long before Tommy had wandered to the snacks table where he started stuffing his mouth. His long time on the street had taught him not to take free food for granted. He was just stuffing a third piece of cake into his mouth when he saw the Emperor enter the room. In his entire life he had only heard rumours about the Emperor and about his wings, but none of them came close to the actual things. The wings were huge and the coolest thing he'd ever seen. The only person on the planet who had wings was the Emperor. That's how you know that he is the Emperor. Nobody knew how it happened or when it started, but what everybody in the country did know was that the wings chose who was Emperor. In most countries, the title went from father to their offspring, but this wasn't the case in the Antarctic Empire. Here, the wings chose the next emperor. One day, someone would wake up with wings on their back, and that's how you know that they are the next emperor. More often than not, the wings still chose the children of the previous emperor. Nobody really knew how it worked. They only knew that it worked. The people believed that the wings were the reason that the Antarctic Empire was the longest standing country and most prosperous country in the world. The emperor went to the podium to give a speech. Tommy decided it was time to leave and find something worth stealing. He quietly left the hall to do his devious deed. And that is the first chapter of Tommy in its best scam ever by... This is a unique username for the website. I am. My friend has the most creative ideas. Especially when it comes to usernames, yeah. I love her. Please go show her fanfic some love and go read it. Like I said, I have a link in the description down below. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more art videos every single Friday. Have a great weekend, guys, and keep on sketching. Bye!